Big boy on the rails. Hello everybody and welcome back to Old, Frail, and Decrepit. This time we're going to have a look at something that a lot of people kind of turn their noses up at. And that is the Marx 7-inch tin cars. Now, the history behind them is that it was kind of a rush job when Marx brought these out. You've probably heard the story of unique art bringing out trains, kind of catching Louis Marx flat-footed. And so to meet unique art's perceived challenge, Marx developed these 7-inch cars and a couple of locomotives to meet that challenge. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at those. Those 7-inch cars hit the market in 1950, and the last of the 7-inch that Marx made would have been in the early 60s with the William Crookes passenger cars. So we'll also see where they showed up again in new production with the new Marx manufacture of Marx cars. So we're going to go through here. We're going to look at what rolling stock I have. I don't have a lot. There wasn't a lot of variety in that set anyway. We're also going to look at all of the locomotives that would have been found in the sets for the 7-inch rolling stock. So we're going to do that, and we're going to watch them all run. So thanks for watching. Now, Marx 7-inch cars was a very limited run. Now, I don't have every example of the 7-inch cars, but I have the most common ones, which of course are the Wabash gondolas, and then the Pennsylvania merchandise service cars. I actually have 3 of those. And then the State of Maine boxcars, and this other merchandise service I've already converted over to the scale trucks. And if you watched my last video, you will see where I convert over these State of Maine cars. Now, you might have noticed stuck in the middle here is a little transition piece that I made, because if you have the early tilt couplers, they don't match up with anything but other tilt couplers. So I took a truck with a plastic tilt coupler, which has the slot for the tab and slot, and just run a nut and bolt up through it with a tab and slot coupler facing backward. And that's what I used to hook up these 2 incompatible items. The other thing here that we have is this tender, which up until yesterday, it looked just like this. The 994 being the much larger than the usual steamer that Marx put out, they made this larger tender to go with it. So I took it apart and spray painted it to match my customized 994. Now, I have showed this on the channel before, but I have customized this. I cut out the fake trucks on the front and the back and actually put a motor in it from a 666 locomotive. So this is a smoking unit, and I have front and trailing trucks. So that's what's pulling that train up on the tracks right now. Now, in looking at these Pennsylvania merchandise service cars, you'll notice that the doors open on them. And that's one way they came. The other way was this, with a plug door. It's printed on there, but it's completely smooth. So that kind of shows you the little bit of difference. Now, they did come in several numbers. Now, these two are the same number, but that was just luck of the draw there. So that's one of the varieties that you could get on it. And also in these 7-inch, some of the cabooses also had multiple numbers. So if you go to collecting these, you can try and get all of those numbers. Here's my collection of cabooses. We'll start here with the New York Central pacemaker. Now, I've already converted it over to the 4-wheel trucks. And for a while I was using it even with my Lionel pacemaker train, because I didn't have a good caboose with that. But I've added several cabooses now, so it's relegated back to working just the Marx trains. Then I have 2 of these ATSF cabooses. And these came with the 4-wheel trucks. So they had the tilt couplers front and back. And actually I could run a caboose train with those. Next one here is the Nickel Plate Road 956. This one's in really nice shape. This one, not so much. This one came with a group of items that I purchased. But I did add a coupler on the back and pressed it into service for today's video. Now, if you saw it on this site, which I actually did when I ran this one, I ran it with only this side out. It doesn't look too bad. I don't know what this was laying in, but most of it washed off, but it had started to eat through the paint and into the metal a little bit. So it looks like it's been on the railroad for quite some time. Next, we've got the Southern Pacific. I have 2 of those, and I'm probably going to just leave those as is because they work well both with 6-inch and with the scale, as long as you've got a compatible coupler. Here's the B&O. Now, what I'm missing here is I do not have the Kansas City Southern or the Monon. So if I run into those, they'll be joining the fleet here. And of course, here's my extra Nickel Plate Road in its original condition. Now, I had this extra 7-inch frame with the knuckle couplers. I had shaded out one of the box cars to a tab and slot frame. So I thought, you know what? I know what I'll do. I'll put a Lego base on it. And that way, if they want to build their own railroad car, they can. Now, I haven't actually built anything on this, but I think I will. Eventually, I'll build something on there. Just a little something extra to go along with my 7-inch cars. With the end of the Marx era, it seemed like we wouldn't see 7-inch cars again. But when new Marx came out, in the 80s or 90s, they chose the 7-inch frame and design to make their passenger cars. And there are several styles. This happened to be the one that I have, is the set of Canadian Pacific passenger cars. And you can see, matches up perfectly, and it has the scale trucks on it. So even though they were a lighter weight and kind of a stopgap measure for Marx, it is a platform that really had its uses far into the future. If you were to have bought one of these 7-inch Marx sets back in the 50s, these are the locomotives you would have seen in that set. Now, I don't have them in the order that they would appear, but this first one here is the 591, and it would have been a relatively late comer, because I think that was the last of the stamped steel locomotives Marx made. This one next to it is a 994, which was actually developed for this set of cars. This particular example started life as a wind-up. I picked it up at an antique store. It was just a big pile, 2 train sets, and this was a wind-up. Well, wind-ups have limited interest for me, so I put a motor in it, drilled a hole here, and put a lens that kind of just glows. It's not got a whole lot of light that it lets through. The next one here is the ever popular Marx 400, which could be found in a variety of ways, wind-ups and forward onlys, and even all the way up to a double reduction. In fact, my first one of those was a double reduction. Then we have the Marx 62 B&O, which is just really good looking. The Monon, the number, 81, I think it is. That is just a very excellent running. You know, for their small size, those are really nice diesels, and they look great with most things. Well, until you get all the way up to the scale cars. The Menards cars look a little funny with it too. Then you got the Kansas City Southern, which is number 54, which, of course, that Kansas City Southern is just really, really good looking. And then the Southern Pacific 6000. So these would have been the locomotives you would have found with it. And we're going to see each of these running, pulling my limited stock of 7-inch cars.